President Obama's Christianity. The National Prayer Breakfast, Part 3. The President went on to state, quote, "We know that part of living in a pluralistic society means that our personal religious beliefs alone can't dictate our response to every challenge we face," unquote. This is where the President's philosophy demonstrates a sharp contrast to his private religious faith and practice over against his public political philosophy. But what I shall demonstrate is that the President has a tendency to always seek to use his religious beliefs and the Bible on private matters as a means to support his socialistic political ideals, to justify them as Jesus' view, or the view of the Bible, or something that is approved by God. In this statement, the President has now clearly laid out the principle that personal religious beliefs are to be separated from the necessary political responses that challenge us in America today. Note, he uses the terms "can't dictate." I simply ask, why not? Your ideology of political thought and values are coming clearly from your theology, your religious views. Well, there can be no other reason other than what he identified in this statement. We live in a pluralistic society. What does the President mean by this? That we cannot allow the Christian teachings of the Holy Bible to determine our political, social, economic, and educational issues because it would be an offense to these other religions in America? Never mind that America was founded by Christians and the laws and statutes of this nation were based on the laws of God's 10 Commandments, which dictated every understanding of how we to clearly govern ourselves in our behavior, let alone within our collective society. The problem is that with a pluralistic society, some law system must be fundamental to our practices, because there is simply no such thing as neutrality. Every religion is based on some kind of teaching which clearly dictates how that those individuals who follow it are to believe and exercise their faith in their daily lives, whether it is personal or social. That is political, economic, educational, legal. And considering that, the application of justice within the nation. The law is the basis for morality, and all morality is religious. Be it humanistic, from atheist to statism in any of its many historic forms. But the question is if the law was based on those religious moralities, will it be based on one of these basic religious teachings that eventually dominates among the American citizens? Does it mean that in our democratic society that when a majority holds the higher position and can outvote the rest of society, that their morality will govern? Their religion will demand their law, their ethics, their morality be the morality of the nation. There's just no such thing as neutrality. And we will see that that is even true in President Obama's Christianity. What is important for the historic Christians in this nation is this: Christianity is out. That is, the teaching of the Bible is the Word of God, which dictates how we are to believe and live out our lives in accordance to God's commandments, is no longer applicable in our society. That does not mean that we are to be persecuted for being Christians. Oh no. We will not be persecuted if we accept our new role, which is relegated to absolute submission to the political will of the President and the national collective federalist practices. The Constitution is out. The President, of course, has demonstrated how easily it is to ignore the Constitution and its laws, and why not? The Constitution was based on Christian beliefs and practices, and that would also be offensive to other religious teachings and faiths and their practices, which are not Christian. Simply put, as it was in the Roman Empire, so it shall be in America. Bow to Caesar, to the national collective will, which represents what it thinks is best for the citizens of this nation, and you will be spared from their persecution. However, this means that you must learn to burn your incense to Caesar, that is, to the new Messiah of the democratic state. Now, what is most interesting is that the President again clearly demonstrates this dichotomy between Christianity and, therefore, the Bible, God, when he states, quote, we can't leave our values at the door. He means the door of political issues that face our nation and its people. We cannot leave our values at the door, he says. If we leave our values at the door, we abandon much of the moral glue that has held our nation together for centuries. Notice the contradiction. We cannot allow the religious beliefs of Christianity to dictate our answers. Well, some answers where the President chooses to apply them from a unbiblical interpretation of a context. But our values cannot be left out either. And note that he calls our values the moral glue of this nation. If we leave our values at the door, he says, we abandon much of the moral glue that has held our nation together for centuries and allowed us to become somewhat more perfect a union. Clearly, Christianity has nothing to offer except where it benefits the President in the justification of his political policies, even if it is misrepresenting the correct interpretation of the Bible. But note that the moral values are being clearly identified as something other than those Judeo-Christian ethics found in the law of God as stated in the Ten Commandments. Clearly, the President doesn't know the Christian history of America. Perhaps that is one of the things he plans on changing. But we are to ask, then whose values are you speaking of, Mr. President? The President's view that pluralism is to be the new norm in America and that values are something other than the teachings of the Judeo-Christian ethic ought to cause any serious Christian to stop and think about these implications. I hope now what has been said has finally dawned upon you. Religious beliefs are just personal beliefs and nothing more. They are purely subjective, and unless they somehow benefit the President's new changes, they must be rejected and left at the door of the new socialist states of America, where the God of Christianity and His Word are not welcome, except as it relates to personal beliefs and private practices, but none that affect our public, our society, our political ideology. Again, are you surprised at such liberal thinking?